From a housing commission flat to commanding a criminal empire worth millions. A journey spanning 4 continents, 7 countries, and over a decade of dominance. This is the story of Mark Buddle, the man who declared himself Supreme Commander of the Comancheros. Picture this, 160 kilograms of cocaine worth $40 million.
So the AFP alleges that Mark Buddle was involved in the importation of 160 kilograms of cocaine to Melbourne.
A private messaging app secretly controlled by the FBI.
A NOM was sold to them, the idea was it's sold to them by a crook in San Diego, saying this is foolproof.
Methamphetamine prices plummeted from $250,000 to $80,000 per kilogram. Behind these numbers lies a tale of ambition, betrayal, and hubris. At just 27, Buddle seized control of the Comancheros, Australia's most feared motorcycle gang. By 36, he was orchestrating drug empires from luxury resorts in Dubai. How does a street tough from Maroubra end up chartering private jets to the Super Bowl? What drives a man to tattoo his own surname across his chest? Through 15 months in prison, multiple international arrests, and a sensational poolside brawl caught on camera, Buddle's influence only grew. Until technology, the very tool he trusted, led to his downfall.
Comanchero's boss Mark Buddle is tonight in custody following a top-secret mission to fly him from Turkey to Australia.
Comanchero boss Mark Buddle is tonight in custody on home soil after being flown from Turkey to Australia in a top-secret mission. But his journey to justice has been held up by disturbing intelligence.
Australia's most wanted, delivered to Darwin in darkness. Mark Buddle is marched backwards, arms held high and in handcuffs, moments after Turkish police handed him over.
This isn't just another crime story. It's a tale of power, pride, and the price of ambition. From the streets of Sydney to the shores of Cyprus, through Dubai's opulence and Turkey's intrigue. Follow the rise and fall of a man who thought he could rule the underworld from exile. The numbers are staggering, the characters compelling, and the truth, stranger than fiction. Welcome to the world of Mark Buddle. Mark Buddle was born in 1984.
Mark Douglas Buddle was born in Maroubra, Australia, in 1984.
Growing up in the housing commission flats of Maroubra, Sydney, his early life was marked by what many described as a gritty childhood.
Mark Buddle is a Maroubra boy from Housing Commission.
His entry into the criminal world came early. But what forces shape a young man into one of Australia's most notorious criminal figures?
He's had a tough upbringing and ventured into a life of crime at an early age, which led to stints in juvenile prison.
By joining the Comancheros motorcycle gang in his youth, Buddle showed an immediate appetite for power and control.
At around age 21, Mark joined the notorious Australian bikie gang called the Comancheros. The Comancheros were and still are a feared outlaw motorcycle club that is said to be heavily involved in the underworld of Australia. Drug smuggling is especially high on top of their list of crimes they are involved in, but extortion, hits, money laundering, and robberies are commonly used avenues to make money too.
Would anyone have guessed this Maroubra boy would one day command Australia's most feared biker gang? The signs of his rising influence emerged in 2010. That year, Buddle's name became linked to 2 significant events: the murder of security guard Gary Alabon during a robbery, and a public brawl with members of the notorious motorcycle club in Bondi. The latter incident, where he fought alongside Mick Murray against Alan Sarkis and David Lima, resulted in an affray charge.
As any other bikie gang, the Comancheros had several enemies. One of those was the notorious motorcycle club. The feud between both of the gangs could have started as early as 2008, when leader Alan Sarkis' car exploded. This attack was believed to have been carried out by the Comancheros. Over the next 2 years, the 2 bikie gangs would go on to attack each other. Therefore, police said it could have been an act of retribution by the notorious motorcycle club, though it has to be said that there's not been anyone prosecuted for the attack.
His ascension to power came in 2011. when then National President Dax Ngakuru fled to Turkey. Buddle seized his chance, becoming the Comanchero's national president at just 27 years old.
Mark Buddle really burst on the scene a bit over a decade ago in Sydney as a bikie with the Comanchero bikie gang. And his rise through the ranks was pretty quick, wasn't it?
The title Supreme Commander gave Mark the feeling he was invincible. No one should dare to say anything about him, let alone say anything about his mother.
Think about that. Barely old enough to rent a car in some countries, yet leading one of Australia's most powerful criminal organizations.
What kind of power does that give him?
Complete control of what's considered probably one of the most high-profile bikie gangs in Australia, but he has left.
Violence seemed to follow his rise. December 2011 saw him involved in a particularly brutal brawl at Melbourne's Spearmint Rhino Strip Club.
The 18th of December 2011, Mark visited the Spearmint Rhino Gentlemen's Club at King Street, together with 3 others. Then, 10 minutes to 3, a brawl suddenly broke out. Mark, wearing a white blouse, had gotten into a verbal altercation with a man who allegedly said something about his mother, which I can't repeat due to this platform's policy. For 2 minutes on end, punches and kicks started flying. One of his opponents, who was kicked and punched, lost 2 teeth, had 3 fractured teeth and 1 shattered tooth. Another man had a broken hand.
By December 2012, Queensland police were arresting him for extradition to New South Wales over yet another pub brawl. A pattern was emerging. Through it all, one thing became clear. Mark Buddle was no ordinary criminal. His rapid rise from Maroubra streets to the highest ranks of the Comancheros marked him as someone special, or perhaps someone especially dangerous. But this was just the beginning of his story. Power suited Mark Buddle perfectly. After becoming national president in 2011, his influence grew exponentially with each passing year. But how does one maintain control over such a notorious organization? The answer came through fear and force. In January 2014, Buddle faced charges for threatening to murder a Queensland police officer, a bold move that demonstrated his growing sense of invulnerability. His confidence seemed to know no bounds.
Australia's most feared bikie gang leaders is behind bars after allegedly threatening to kill a Queensland detective. Officers laid in wait for the Comanchero president at Coolangatta Airport, then pounced as he touched down for a Gold Coast holiday. Instead of sun, sand and surf, Mark Buddle's Queensland holiday will now be behind bars. The 29-year-old Comanchero boss was arrested at Gold Coast Airport yesterday, days after being released from jail in New South Wales.
Legal troubles continued to mount. For his role in the Spearmint Rhino brawl, he pleaded guilty to multiple charges. 1 count of affray, 1 count of intentionally causing injury, and 2 counts of assault. The result? A 15-month prison sentence that seemed to only enhance his reputation. By 2016, everything changed, with police declaring him a person of interest in the 2010 Alabon murder. Buddle made a strategic retreat to the United Arab Emirates.
He left here in 2016. He went overseas legally, but since it has emerged that he is a major person of interest in the murder of a security guard in 2010 in the heart of Sydney, a man called Gary Alabon.
But fleeing didn't mean relinquishing control. Instead, he appointed a powerful committee to run the Comancheros in his absence. His management structure was precise. Tarek Sahed became National Sergeant at Arms, Mick Murray took charge of Melbourne, and Alan Meehan controlled Sydney. Each man was fiercely loyal to Buddle, ensuring his grip on power remained firm despite his absence.
Mark Buddles has always had a very loyal base of enforcers, or of people willing to do whatever he would like.
September 2017 marked a defining moment. Buddle sent a message to all Comancheros. I'm the fucking commander of the world. No one is to touch another member or set up another chapter without my permission. Who else would dare make such a bold proclamation? Think about the audacity, running a criminal empire from overseas Declaring yourself a global commander, maintaining control through fear and loyalty. Was this the peak of Buddle's power? Or was it the beginning of his downfall? Dubai represented a new chapter for Mark Buddle. Leaving behind Sydney's suburbs, he settled into the Palms, one of Dubai's most exclusive resorts.
He was based in Dubai for a long time. He was living in one of the most exclusive resorts over there, the Palms. He lived a pretty good life compared to his origins from Maroubra.
How different was this life from his Maroubra beginnings? Money flowed freely in his new kingdom. Private jets whisked him to international events like the Super Bowl, while luxury yachts carried him between Greek islands. This was a far cry from his housing commission days.
I'd seen stories, I think written by you, that were describing him kind of hopping between Greek islands and chartering, private jets to go to the Super Bowl. He's having a great time. Clearly that his lifestyle is being funded from somewhere.
But paradise came with problems. By 2021, Buddle had grown concerned about Australia's drug market dynamics.
While all that was going down, Mark was living the good life in sunny and luxurious Dubai, while still heavily involved in drug smuggling. During 2020, the price of some drugs tumbled in Australia, leading to much lower profits for Mark and his fellow drug smugglers.
Methamphetamine prices had crashed from 250,000 Australian dollars per kilogram to just 80,000 Australian dollars.
As you have seen in 2020, the price of fry, which is slang for meth, reached 250. In a matter of 1 month, it dropped to 80k. This is because there is no structure, no rules, no reasoning, and to be honest, there's no sense.
What's a crime boss to do? His solution was ambitious. Buddle proposed a mafia-style commission to control drug prices and operations in Australia.
And it wasn't long ago that Mark Buddle sent a message out about a mafia-style kind of arrangement he was looking to introduce called the Commission.
Through encrypted messages on the Anam app, he detailed his vision for a cartel-like structure, with himself at the top naturally.
He sent our message out again on an encrypted device that went around to most of the criminal in Australia, the whole network, basically saying he had appointed himself as the head of the Commission, where he would basically put a tax on any importation of any drug arriving in Australia, particularly in Sydney. He said he would ensure that there would be safe passage, that people would be able to distribute their drugs safely. He also said that it would be a way of helping to control the price, because he's in the text message, he said that the price of fry, which was ice basically, had crashed because of all the people involved in the drug world. And he said this way, by basically having a cartel controlled by him, the price could be elevated.
Over 1,000 police carrying out 33 search warrants and helping with 57 others. Almost all of the arrests here to do with the illicit drug trade.
So he combined like a business cartel with a mafia-style enforcement, with him at the top.
Life in Dubai wasn't all business. A poolside brawl with British tourists in 2021 shattered his carefully maintained low profile.
Exiled Sydney bikie boss Mark Buddle has clashed with English tourists in Dubai. Vision posted on Instagram shows the heavily tattooed Comanchero at the back appearing to spit and shout threats as restaurant staff try to separate the groups. New South Wales police are said to be keen to speak to Buddle, but he's been in Dubai since 2016.
Dubai, and
Yeah.
it didn't look too good.
No, so that was in the middle of last year, in the middle of 2021. It's the first time for somebody who's so high profile, he lives a pretty low profile.
He had until then, he really had.
Yeah.
The incident, captured on video and shared online, forced him to flee to Turkey as Dubai authorities closed in.
It was perhaps a battle this Comanchero boss would have rather not picked. After video emerged of his fight with British tourists in Dubai last year, Mark Buddle chose to flee. Fearing an arrest, he lleft his wife and children behind.
He went from Dubai to Turkey.
where, you know, there's a lot of Comanchero in Turkey.
Yep.
They're mainly of Turkish nationality,
Yep.
so they're pretty protected there, whereas Mark Buddle wasn't.
His exile grew more complicated. From Turkey, he moved to Lebanon, then to northern Cyprus, a state recognized only by Turkey.
He actually left there and went to Lebanon, I believe.
He did, but that didn't last long either, really.
No.
So everywhere he goes, the pressure was building on him from Australian authorities and then local authorities. And because he's an Aussie boy, a Sydney, you know, suburban Sydney boy, he didn't quite have the protection that
That's
some
right.
of the locals did. And eventually he ended up in northern Cyprus, which is, it's a weird part of the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Each move seemed more desperate than the last, his world shrinking with every relocation. Meanwhile, cracks appeared in his personal life.
His world was slowly
Got tougher and
tougher
for him to live.
His partner Mel Terwisha remained in Dubai with their children, while he sought refuge across the Middle East. Was the mighty commander's empire beginning to crumble?
Nobody's above the law, and I think we have a very strong message here in New South Wales that if you do the wrong thing, you know, we will continue to track you down, we'll trace you, and we'll bring you back into this country.
Technology proved to be Buddle's greatest weakness. Like many criminal figures of his era, he relied heavily on encrypted communication devices to run his operations. But who was really watching? The Anam app seemed perfect. Marketed as an uncrackable communication tool, it attracted criminals worldwide. Buddle, like many others, believed his messages were secure as he discussed drug deals and organizational matters.
Anam was sold to them, the idea was sold to them by a crook in San Diego, saying this is foolproof. It was basically embraced by Haken Arif, a very, very senior crime warlord with enormous amount of respect in Australia and Sydney, and the Comanchero. So he was the one that kind of endorsed it.
Reality told a different story. Unknown to Buddle, every message sent through Anam was being monitored by the FBI and Australian Federal Police. The app, far from being secure, was actually created by the FBI as part of Operation Trojan Shield.
We've spoken a lot in the last 12 months about the Anam app, which was a bit of a Trojan horse for the underworld. And so what happened was underworld figures were allegedly using this app thinking it was the safest thing in the world, that they could talk about
A device that it was like the cipher, a device they could send.
a mobile phone. They could talk about murders, drug imports, whatever they wanted, and police couldn't see it, and they were just free to go about their business.
Unbeknownst, every one of those messages that they were communicating was being captured by the FBI and the Australian Federal Police.
The app was created by the FBI, and for 3 years, Australian police have been monitoring every word.
His messages revealed ambitious plans. Through Anam, Buddle complained about falling drug prices and proposed his commission to control the Australian drug trade. Each message strengthened the case against him.
They were talking freely about drug deals, about hits on people.
Yes.
The evidence mounted silently. While Buddle lived his luxury life abroad, law enforcement agencies gathered intelligence from his own communications. How many secrets did those messages reveal?
The Federal Police and the FBI have captured a lot of communications between well-known criminal networks around the world, but particularly Australians.
By mid-2022, the trap was ready to spring. Northern Cyprus had already declared him inconvenient in terms of public peace and security. He had committed a visa violation and had immigration problems.
So Buddle chose Northern Cyprus as a safe haven, only to be arrested and flown to Turkey, where extradition is an option. A decision to deport Mark Douglas Buddle, who was found to be inconvenient for the peace and security of our people, was taken on Friday. He now remains in an undisclosed jail in Ankara.
Turkey was ready to deport him to Australia, and the AFP were getting ready to arrest him.
Mark Buddle would eventually leave Turkey. He would be deported because he was being held there mainly on visa violation and immigration problems. They were having a big purge of non-Turkish nationals who they considered perhaps to be undesirable, and that's how he was classed.
Was it hubris that led to his downfall? Or simply the inevitable result of trusting too much in technology? Either way, the Anam app had sealed his fate. It ended on a Tuesday night in 2022. Mark Buddle, Australia's most wanted man, was finally coming home in handcuffs.
Someone who is known as Australia's most wanted man has appeared in a Darwin court after his dramatic deportation and subsequent arrest by Australian Federal Police.
Well, that came as a Saturday night, get a phone call saying he's been arrested by the FBI.
Yep.
FBI guys have burst in. Now, that proved to be maybe incorrect, that they're under the misapprehension that it was the FBI, but in fact it was local Cypriots, had gone in through what was described as a major operation, going in through windows, heavily armed, dragged him out, and that's when he ended up in Turkey.
How the mighty had fallen. The operation was a patient one and secretive.
It was very patient and very secretive. There's been very cryptic messages between myself and the federal police, and he's been in custody for quite a while now over there in Turkey. And to be quite honest, very few people thought he'd be coming back here to Australia, because there was no warrant out for his arrest. You know, lots of police wanted to talk to him about lots of things, but there was no charges had been laid here in Australia.
Turkish authorities chartered a private jet, and without Australian federal police present, flew Buddle back to face justice. Did he know his fate as he boarded that plane? The charges were serious. The AFP alleged his involvement in importing 160 kilograms of cocaine, worth 40 million Australian dollars, from Hong Kong to Melbourne in May 2021.
But it's since emerged that about 2 weeks ago a warrant was signed in a Melbourne Magistrates Court accusing Mark Buddle of being involved in 160 kilo importation of cocaine. And then, what transpired between, the federal police have a representative in Turkey, and next thing you know, Mark Buddle is put on a plane here being deported to Australia.
Those Anam messages had come back to haunt him. Everything unraveled quickly. His personal life imploded as Mel Terwisha announced their separation, revealing his marriage to a Turkish Cypriot woman.
There were stories coming out that he actually had married a woman in Cyprus, that he had split from Mel.
Yes.
She actually took to social media, I think, to say some of that.
Yeah, she had a chat to us.
It went from being quite an amazing story about he's been arrested to almost a soap opera.
By 2023, Alex Vare had replaced him as the Comanchero's supreme commander, yet questions remain. Despite his imprisonment, loyal lieutenants like Alan Mian and Tariq Zahid maintain their positions. But authorities say it's not for long until they too have been arrested.
Buddle's arrest is likely to intensify the power vacuum within the Comanchero's bikie gang, already exasperated by the attempted assassination of Sergeant-at-Arms Tariq Zahid and the murder of his brother Omar, one of a dozen recent killings in a bloody gangland war.
Today's arrest is a significant blow against organised crime groups, and it's just part of the journey of the AFP in terms of dismantling these groups.
While the AFP considers Buddle a big fish, he's not the only target of investigators, who still hope to reel in 20 others from across the globe.
How much influence does Buddle still wield from behind bars? The story continues to evolve. What's next for the former commander of the world? Only time will tell.